For a long time, the Middle East has been plagued by tension and conflict, but it's about to get worse, with Israel launching incessant attacks on her neighbors. Defending its action, Israel is claiming that the attacks are in self-defense against threats from these countries and their allies who are hostile to its existence. However, this situation didn't sit well with Russia, and they are now publicly condemning Israel's actions, putting the two countries at odds. But they didn't stop there. Russia has issued a strong message to Israel, warning them to stop their aggressive acts. So what's the content of the message? And why is Russia concerned about Israel's act of terror? Join us in this video as we dive into Russia's shocking message to Israel. Israel is at war with the Middle East once again, and we're made aware thanks to the Israeli attack on Palestine and Syria in the name of self-defense and Iran's response to Israel's self-defense. Since Israel became an independent state in 1948, it has been in a state of war with some of the Middle East countries, which include Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Iraq. However, on March 26, 1979, Israel and Egypt signed a peace treaty, formally ending the state of war that has existed between the countries for the past 30 years. Then, in 1994, Israel and Jordan signed their own peace treaty, ending the tension between both countries and also establishing diplomatic relations, among other matters. But the case has been different in their relationship with Syria. Despite attempts at a peaceful solution, Syria and Israel have yet to reach a complete and lasting peace agreement. Both countries have, at times, signed armistice agreements, but these have not been fully successful in stopping the conflict. Syria does not recognize Israel as a legitimate state and does not accept Israeli passports as valid for entry, while Israel regards Syria as a hostile country and generally prohibits its citizens from traveling there. The tensions between both countries periodically escalated into violent clashes. In 2022 alone, Israeli attacks on Syria have killed at least 44 people and injured 50 people. However, in recent years, the situation has become even more dangerous, with Iran and Russia becoming involved in the war. Iran, a regional adversary of Israel, has supported the Syrian government and its allies, some of whom are considered terrorists by Israel and the US. Now, Iran and Israel have been enemies since Iran's Islamic Revolution in 1979, when leaders quickly denounced Israel as an enemy state and imperialist power in the region. The enmity grew over the decades as both sides fought to cement and grow their power and influence across the region. The tensions between Iran and Israel go beyond mere words and proxy groups. The two countries have been accused of being behind a long series of attacks on each other's interests within and outside their soil, which they have publicly denied. This has become known as a shadow war that has increasingly spilled out into the open as hostilities grew. Iran's nuclear program has been at the center of some of the largest attacks. Israel, which itself was thought to clandestinely possess dozens of nuclear weapons, we'll get back to that later, has vowed to never let Iran develop a nuclear bomb. Iran has reiterated that its nuclear program is for civilian purposes. Israel and the US are widely believed to be behind the Stuxnet malware that inflicted major damage on Iran's nuclear facilities in the 2000s. In addition to physical attacks on Iran's nuclear and military facilities, there have been a number of assassinations targeting Iranian scientists working in the nuclear program. These attacks have been blamed on Israel and have further heightened tensions between the two countries. The most high-profile of these assassinations occurred in 2020, when a top Iranian nuclear scientist, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, was gunned down in a brazen attack that involved a sophisticated weapon system, which included a remote-controlled machine gun mounted on a pickup truck and satellite tracking technology that later exploded, destroying the evidence. On the other hand, Israel and its allies have accused Iran of orchestrating a number of attacks on Israeli interests, including drone strikes on Israeli-owned oil tankers and cyber attacks. Meanwhile, the chaos and instability in Syria since the outbreak of the civil war in 2011 have created an opportunity for Iran to increase its military presence and capabilities in the region. Iran has used the opportunity to establish a land corridor that connects it to Iraq and Lebanon, giving it a strategic lifeline that allows it to project its power and influence across the region. With the enmity between both since it went to war with Hamas last year, Israel has increased strikes against militias backed by Iran, which have moved closer to the Israeli border. Among the militias targeted by Israel are Hezbollah, a Lebanese Shia group that fought a war with Israel in 2006, and the Fatemiyun Brigade, an Afghan Shia group fighting with the Syrian army. Israel has accused these groups of smuggling weapons and planning attacks on Israel from Syrian territory. Israel views these activities as a major threat to its security. This is where Russia comes in. Since 2015, Israel has made a concerted effort to inform Russia in advance of its military operations in Syria, in order to avoid misunderstandings and accidental clashes with each other. This is due to the complex geopolitical situation in the region, where Russia is a key ally of the Syrian government. Israel's communication with Russia has helped to ensure that the two countries' forces do not come into conflict. But with Israel's incessant attack on Syria-based Iranian militants, the development comes with a key shift in Israeli policy. It no longer always tells Syria's patron Russia in advance about attacks on Syrian territory. As a general rule, Israel isn't informing Russia before it strikes in Syria, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov said, according to the Interfax news service. We find out after they happen. This change in policy signals Israel's growing frustration with Russia's inability or unwillingness to rein in Iran's influence and activities in Syria. It also shows Israel's determination to protect its interests and deter its enemies. In addition, Israel may believe that by not alerting Russia, it can better surprise its targets and minimize the risk of information leaks or interference. This change in Israel's policy has angered Russia, which views it as a violation of the 2015 de-escalation agreement and a threat to regional and global security. Russia has accused Israel of putting Russian personnel and assets in Syria at risk and undermining diplomatic efforts to end the war. It has also expressed concern about the humanitarian and environmental impact of Israeli strikes, especially in densely populated areas. In an attempt to avert further escalation, Russia has warned Israel to respect Syria's sovereignty, stop attacking its targets, or face the consequences. We can say Israel's change in policy has strained an already tense relationship with Russia. The two countries have had several diplomatic and military incidents in recent years, including the downing of a Russian plane by Syrian air defenses during an Israeli attack in 2018, and the expulsion of a Russian diplomat by Israel in 2020 over espionage allegations. These incidents have deepened the distrust and animosity between the two countries, making cooperation more difficult and raising the risk of conflict. With Russia's close relationship with Iran, and Israel not conforming to the policy of informing Russia in advance before striking Syria, the matter became further complicated. But is Russia's reaction to Israel's attack on Syria only due to violating their agreement and humanitarian causes? The short answer is probably not. The long answer is that Russia's strong reaction to the change in Israel's policy may stem from a sense of being ignored and challenged by Israel. Russia has invested significant resources in establishing itself as a key player in Syria and the Middle East, and it may feel that Israel's actions are undermining its efforts and influence. Additionally, Russia may be concerned about the potential for further escalation of violence in Syria, as well as the wider region if Israel continues to strike Iranian positions. Russia may also be trying to assert its authority and credibility as a mediator in the region, hoping to maintain its status as a key power player in the Middle East. This change may also cause concern for the United States, as it could complicate its relations with both Israel and Russia. It could also jeopardize the U.S.'s efforts to revive the nuclear deal with Iran and end the war in Syria, which are key foreign policy objectives. The U.S. may be concerned that Israel's actions could lead to a wider conflict in the region, with serious implications for its strategic and security interests. Additionally, the U.S. may want to maintain its leadership and involvement in the Middle East peace process, and Israel's actions could jeopardize that. So, with the outlook of things, what's the scenario that's prone to play out? The lack of cooperation and confidence between Israel and Russia may lead to further confusion, errors, and escalation in the volatile region. potentially turning Syria into a fresh battleground in the Israeli-Gaza conflict. This scenario, which the U.S. and regional allies are endeavoring to avert, is already exacerbated by heightened tensions along Israel's Lebanon border, where Hezbollah operates and regularly engages the Israeli military. Hezbollah has additionally threatened to enter the Gaza conflict and establish a new theater of conflict against Israel from Syria, leveraging its significant presence and sway in the region. Should such a scenario unfold, Israel might confront a multi-front conflict, testing its military prowess and political resolve. According to Geir Peterson, the United Nations Special Envoy for the country, spillover into Syria is not just a risk. It has already begun. Fuel is being added to a tinderbox that was already beginning to ignite. The lack of trust and communication between Israel and Russia is a serious concern and could lead to further tensions and mistakes. The situation is complicated further by the close relationship between the U.S. and Israel, which share a common stance on Iran's nuclear program. The U.S. has been working to prevent a wider conflict in the Middle East and has urged both Israel and Hamas to de-escalate the situation and return to negotiations. In addition to the issue of Israel's strikes in Syria, another important issue that is brewing between Israel and Russia is Israel's policy of nuclear ambiguity. While Israel is widely believed to be a nuclear-armed state, it has never officially confirmed or denied this, and instead follows a policy of nuclear opacity or nuclear ambiguity. This policy is intended to deter potential enemies while avoiding international scrutiny and pressure on its nuclear capabilities. However, this policy was put to the test recently when Israeli far-right heritage minister Amichai Eliyahu made controversial comments on a radio show, implying that Israel might consider using nuclear weapons against Gaza. This comment not only suggested Israel's possession of nuclear weapons, which it has never officially acknowledged, but also its willingness to use them, causing widespread concern and condemnation. In response, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu suspended the minister from cabinet meetings. Netanyahu also distanced himself from the minister's remarks and reiterated Israel's commitment to the policy of nuclear ambiguity. Prime Minister Netanyahu stressed that the remarks made by the heritage minister were irresponsible and did not reflect the position of the Israeli government or its people. Meanwhile, according to the Federation of American Scientists, Israel possesses around 90 nuclear warheads which can be delivered via aircraft, ballistic missiles, or submarines. What's your take on the current situation between Russia and Israel? Do you think Israel possesses nuclear weapon power? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments section.